Today I am absolutely delighted to be speaking with Richard Flook. I first met Richard around 2007. He looked at an MRI of my brain, told me I had issues with my thyroid. I said, no, I don't, because until I cleared it, I didn't know, but Richard did. That course that I did with him 6 years ago blew my mind. He's a very interesting guy and he's done a lot of interesting things. Let me tell you a little bit about it. Now, I've got his bio written down here, so I'm going to read. Richard Flook is the originator of advanced clearing energetics and author of the book, Why Am I Sick? And I do have here the first copy, the first edition of his book, signed by him. Why Am I Sick? His background in NLP, hypnotherapy, timeline therapy, and meta health provided the foundation for his development of advanced clearing energetics that we're going to be talking about today. It's a comprehensive process that assists a person in healing themselves by clearing out the trapped energy that is now known to cause chronic conditions, disease and illness. Now, it was losing his mother from metastasized breast cancer during childhood that caused Richard to feel this deep compulsion to find answers as to why disease occurs and how we heal. This led him on a journey to discover the root cause of illnesses and to finally answer this question: why do we get sick? Advanced clearing energetics is the culmination of a 20-year research into answers and strategies as to how we can heal. He uses leading edge techniques to explain how to easily work back from a doctor's diagnosis, discover the energetic cause of a disease and learn from it, which results in the body naturally healing itself. Along with these groundbreaking new developments, Richard has recently rewritten his book, Why Am I Sick?, to include many of these new advancements, which is set to launch in summer 2013 with Hay House Publishing. He is also working on a brand new book that explains the scientific theory behind and the process of advanced clearing energetics, called How Can I Heal? That's due for release in March 2014, a new book explaining the scientific theory behind it. Now, Richard teaches these groundbreaking techniques around the world, live and online, to students from all types of medical, alternative and health backgrounds. Richard currently lives in Ontario, Canada, with his wife Kristin and son Oliver. Richard, it's wonderful to talk to you today.
Well, it's lovely to actually be here and to be able to talk to you from Canada. And I believe I don't quite know where you live in the UK, but obviously I'm from the UK. But it's great to be here.
Yes, I'm in the middle.
Oh, right,
in the centre.
In the centre. Okay.
Richard, now I talked at the beginning about the fact that you once very kindly looked at an MRI scan of my brain.
Yes, yeah.
You told me, you said, do you have, feelings in your chest? Do you feel? And I said, no. And you just, you didn't say anything. And I remembered thinking about it a couple of years later.
Yeah. And
oh my
what
gosh.
Happened? Yeah.
I didn't realise until it stopped. Now, you took that from an MRI scan of my brain. I remembered you saying at the time that you could do it from CT scans.
Yeah, CT scans and MRIs are a lot more difficult to read. But yes, CT scans are looking at trapped energy. And MRIs are, they're looking really more about other things of tissue, basically. But yes.
Well, I just remember being absolutely fascinated that somebody could look at a picture of my brain and tell me something that was going on in my body.
Yeah. Shall I explain a little bit more about that?
Please do. Please do.
Well, essentially what we see and what we know is the fact that trapped energy, and this is really my new work, is showing up inside the brain and also inside the body. And what happens is that as we get a shock, a particular type of shock, I coined the phrase a Udin moment, which stands for an unexpected, dramatic, isolating shock where we have no strategy for dealing with the problem. And that's unexpected, dramatic, isolating, no strategy, N. That type of shock is the type of thing that causes a disease to occur. Now, my recent work, because I've taken that work that you came and saw me do at that time, a long time ago, and advanced it dramatically, taking it to a completely different level. And I realize now that what is going on is that the shock arrives. It actually arrives in our heart, ironically. Our heart has its own nervous system. And then it sends that information, this Udin moment, up to the brain. And this is where that energy of this Udin moment gets trapped in a specific location in the brain. And that's what I was seeing inside your brain. And there's a little bit more to it, but I might share that with you as we go further through the whole of the call. But that's essentially what I was reading. I was being able to see what the body was sharing with me or with you as to what was going on inside yourself. Does that make sense?
It does. Fascinating. Blows my mind. But yes.
Well, it blows my mind completely as well. It really does, because at the end of the day, what is happening is that we are essentially seeing this, or Mother Nature has done something with every single human, every single animal, and I believe it goes all the way through every part of life, even as far as plants are concerned, that we have certain things that occur inside our environment, and this is my recent work, okay, very, very recent work, that upsets the balance on purpose in order that we learn and evolve as human beings. And gosh, the journey I've gone on since you came and saw me has taken me to a completely different area, totally different.
Okay, well, if we just talk a little bit about, it was around 6 years ago, what you were looking at was an area would show up in a CAT scan and there'd be a corresponding dis-ease, you know, in somewhere in the body. Now, you're just saying then that it's not an accident, and this is something that's sort of coming in, that it isn't the body making mistakes. The body's doing something deliberate. Now, it starts off with something perhaps that we don't process, that you called it this Udin moment, unexpected, dramatic, isolating, no strategy, which doesn't always have to be something huge, does it?
No, it could be as simple as just having simple as having a bad dream, or just literally walking down the street and then some person saying something horrible to you, absolutely out of the blue. But that's the complexity of that is such that that whole shock that may be very minor actually has its origins somewhere else in what we now know relates to epigenetics. And epigenetics is well described actually by Bruce Lipton in his book Biology of Belief. But epigenetics has been around for a long, long time. And basically that's the study of where our genes are literally, it takes about 20 generations to change the gene code. But in epigenetics terms, what switches our genes to express themselves are environmental changes. And an environmental change can be caused or remembered inside our genetic pooling many, many years back. I mean, generations, 4, 5, 6, maybe 8 generations, maybe even further back than that. That then what happens, what expresses that gene is a Udin moment, a change in our environmental conditions. And what that could be something as simple as perhaps not having enough food, or even, let's say, a little child not being able to eat or being starved of certain types of food. And that's basically what's going on here. We're seeing this shift in the environment, and then this causes the gene to express itself. And the science behind this is phenomenal. In fact, you can't go off and study genetics anymore. If you want to go and do that in university, you need to go off and study epigenetics. And that's phenomenal. And that's essentially what we are seeing in the changes in our bodies. And the thing that it's not an accident anymore, Fiona, that basically the majority of our underlying diseases are caused by this epigenetic shift.
So it is an expression, because I know that I've said this before, but it's always worth stressing. People don't need to feel that they are victims of their genes.
Not at all, no, absolutely. Exactly. No way, yeah.
And I think that's wonderful for giving people hope. Now, obviously, epigenetics is a huge subject, and as you say, Bruce Lipton, Biology of Belief, is a lovely place to start. But once people have got that in mind, you've then, with your background, you learned about mapping issues with conditions, didn't you?
Well, yes, let me give you a little bit of the history. What basically happened in 2004, in fact, it went right even further back than that. I've been studying this stuff for over 20 years. I came across some work of a maverick doctor. But why did I discover this work? Well, because my mother died from breast cancer, and it was on her death that I went, damn it, I am going to find, and I'm going to swear here, I'm going to use the C word. No, in fact, I'm only going to spell it out, C-U-R-E word, because I'm not allowed to use it, you know? And because basically I said at that time, because I naively didn't know that it was going to be taken totally by the medical profession. I've never known a profession actually own a word, but apparently they could do that now. Now, basically, I wanted to find out what was really causing this problem to occur inside my mother. She had a breast cancer, and I said, look, you know, I'm going to find out what's going on. And so what I did was I studied all sorts of different areas. I really want to become a medical doctor, want to go off and study psychology, and then it took me on different avenues. I couldn't do that. It was just, I kept sort of being knocked back. Whenever I wanted to go and get the qualifications, something stupid would happen and I'd be taken out of that whole circle. It was just weird. Anyway, so I ended up learning something like NLP, and through NLP then studied as well this doctor. I came across this maverick doctor called Gert Hammer, and well, he had basically made a connection between stressful events and certain diseases. Now, since then, I found out that he plagiarized all this information, it seems, but he did do some great work all the same. He did look at brain CT scans. I don't think it was genuinely his work, but all the same, he did look at about 30,000, maybe even more brain CT scans, and made some good maps. And from that, I went, there is a link between stressful events and disease. And that answered for the first time why my mother got her breast cancer, which was great. But it didn't answer how does a person actually heal. And after that, I couldn't actually study Hammer's stuff very well because it's all in German, but a group of people that were German started to open the information up in different languages, and particularly English, and I studied that. I became very well known, and that's the book that you have. I wrote a book basically to prove what Hammer was saying was correct. And to my delight, there were some really good things. And as I said, I've done even more work into that and found out that all the work has even better backgrounds. And the outcome really was that I then went, well, there's more to this, because I was doing a lot of work with people and we were using energetic techniques to clear things. But what I was finding, that it was really clunky, very difficult, very challenging to try and get from A to B, and it took almost 2 hours sometimes to work with a client. And I realized that there was a lot more going on, that the heart's involved, as well in this whole thing, this Udin moment, that the guts are involved as well, because they all have their own individual nervous systems along with the brain, which literally is what we call our central nervous system. Fascinating stuff. I could go on a little bit more. I'll let you ask me a couple more questions.
Well, one of the things that I found so fascinating about your advanced clearing energetics technique is that you said that you worked back from the diagnosis. Now, I just love the way you think here, because you've gone out, you have learned so much, because your knowledge astounds me. I remember that from the course that we did all those years ago. I'm just thinking, ooh! The amount of knowledge you have is astounding. But that wasn't enough for you.
No.
You had to carry on.
Yes.
So, because that is just a diagnostic tool, isn't it?
Well, medicine and German new medicine is literally a diagnostic tool, and now I wasn't happy with that.
No, this wasn't enough. So then you have to work back. So you're using techniques, you're saying they're clunky. Don't like that. Richard can't stop looking,
That's
finding.
Right. Yeah.
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 So tell us a little bit more about that, because it has been about 6 years since I've had sort of a lot of contact with what you've been doing personally.
Yeah, well, I'll go on a little bit more and just say what else I did was I started looking by chance at some energetic work done by a group of people who set up a company called Epigenetics System. That's what it was originally called, and it's now called NES Health. And NES Health, basically what they did was, or the people that were involved in that and became good friends of mine. One of them, the chief scientific officer, called Peter Fraser, and she became literally a mentor of mine. And Peter and I got together at various times and we looked at what was going on inside the body. And we also looked at how did the body really create a disease. And we noticed that there were some very, very interesting things. In fact, Peter was the first person to say, hey, the heart's involved. You've got to look at the heart. And that took me on to look at the Heart Math Institute's work. And I met up with Roland McCarty. I was supposed to be in the Living Matrix movie. My piece was actually cut out. I think it was just too early for people to take this information on. But essentially, we now know that the Udin moment, that shock I spoke about, the heart is aware of the shock anything from 1.5 to 7 seconds before it happens. That's crazy. So, you know, yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I'm not saying stuff that isn't scientifically proven. The Heart Math Institute actually worked this out, done scientific tests to prove this, and it's all documented.
Share that test with us now, if you would, Richard, because this is something that took me a little while to get my head round. Okay,
so I'm going to just basically talk about the Living Energy, the Living Matrix basically movie. That what they did in the movie, or what they talk about in the movie, is this test where they took a group of students and they had some pictures up on a computer screen and they played lovely pictures, fluffy cat, lovely sceneries and everything else like that, and they put special measurements on the heart, so I think the EEG measurements, and with that they then fired in all these pictures, and the students just looked at them, and these pictures were at random from a whole collection of pictures inside the computer. Now what they found was they would then slide in a horrible picture, say a disaster scene or a horrible looking face that's been badly mauled or something like that, something that would essentially be shocking. And what they discovered was the hearts on all these students and all these people started changing its rhythm 1.5 to 7 seconds before this randomized picture was about to show up. Figure that one out. That was staggering, isn't it? Absolutely staggering.
But this is proper scientific testing.
Yeah.
They know, we know that this happens. The heart reacts, and it reacts, as you said at the beginning of the interview, before the brain.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We know what's going on. Have you ever had a situation where someone's walked in and said, look, you know, I've got to tell you some really bad news, and before they walked in, you had sort of something going on in your heart, and you go, well, I know something's wrong here, and I don't know what it is. So really, intuition is real. It is genuinely real. And what's even more important is we also know that there is a nervous system inside the guts as well. And what basically happens during this Udin moment is this information is picked up, this shock, before we actually experience it consciously. And that information is shot up to the brain and down into the nervous system, down into the enteric nervous system, which is the gut system. And this is my recent work, is bringing all these three nervous systems together. But it gets even better than that. Shall I explain a little bit more?
Please, I love listening to you. I love listening to all this.
Okay, well, basically, what I've recently discovered is that these environmental shifts, these changes, these things where someone comes along and says, basically, you don't have a job anymore, just pack your bags and get all your thing out your desk and you're fired. Bye. You know about these things before they're going to happen. Your nervous systems know about them. You don't maybe consciously are aware of these things, or you're just walking down the street and then someone just starts shouting expletives at you. I had that happen to me. I was completely taken aback by this guy. It was actually in the United Kingdom. It tends not to happen here. But this guy just started having a go at me for no real apparent reason. And I just thought, huh. So your nervous systems, and I put the three nervous systems in there, your central nervous system, your heart nervous system, and your enteric nervous system. The central nervous system we know as is the brain. The heart nervous system we now know exists, that your heart has more nerves in them than basically they should do. And the enteric nervous system is a completely independent nervous system. Your gut system can live or operate completely on its own without the other nervous systems. So that's what's going on. It's this amazing synergy that's happening with these Udin moments. So we know what's going on beforehand, and it's happening because inside us we have an underlying trapped energetic imprint that needs to be expressed, that changes our epigenetic expression, which I talked about earlier. Basically, the genes are going to express themselves based on these Udin moments. So that's going on. There's another interesting factor is, and this is what I've worked out, is that these whole changes of environmental conditions then are vibrating at a certain frequency, and that frequency is then determining, I don't know whether that's a word, but basically, yeah, I think it is, which organ is affected. You see, the frequency of the Udin moment has a certain wave to it mathematically, and this is the work that I do with Peter Fraser. And this mathematical wave of this Udin moment determines which organ is going to be utilized or expressed inside our body. So with that information, isn't that amazing? With that information, we can then either work back, which we can understand, but we can actually understand that the organ is expressing itself, it's changing, augmenting itself in order that we can deal with that, either the trapped energy from an energetic basis or that particular shock which has occurred environmentally because we need to evolve as a human being. Does that, have I given you too much information?
Yeah, well, I'm in danger of blowing a small gasket here and there, but it's wonderful, wonderful stuff, because what you're doing is saying things that we all know, because we do know that everything is energy. But at times that knowledge is a little bit abstract, isn't it?
Yes, basically it is all energy, and that I think is, I think there's nothing new there, but what is new is that we can explain it. I think that that's very, very important, that we can finally actually say, hey, mathematically, this is what's going on. And this brings me on to Peter Fraser's work that I was explaining. Peter and I got together in June 2011. And when we were there in Spain, my family came over too. We had a really good time. But we worked out what was going on based on some mathematics that had been put together by a East German scientist who spent a lot of time in Russia. And basically what this German scientist had worked out was that there is a natural wave that goes on inside us. In fact, inside everything. And this wave he coined the global scaling wave. And essentially this global scaling wave, what it does is it determines the size of everything in the universe. Now what determines that? And I'll link it into organs, right? Okay, so just to baffle you a little bit more. But basically every single organ inside the body has a specific size for a specific reason. But it's actually a little bit more complicated than that. So let me just go back to the basic science. We got to look, in order to understand this, we have to look at protons. Now, why do we look at protons? Well, protons are the building blocks for our world, are in fact bigger than that. They're the building blocks for our universe. They have a life that is 10 to the power of 25. That's 10 with 25 zeros on the end. That's older than the universe is thought to be. So every single proton is incredibly stable. And when inside a vacuum is space, they vibrate at a certain wave. And this wave has now been mathematically worked out, and it's called the global scaling wave. And if you've ever looked at fractals, have you ever come across fractals, Fiona? Yeah, fractals are these wonderful combinations of nature, and we can see fractals everywhere. If you just look at a sunflower seed, you'll see a fractal. All those gorgeous cauliflowers, you see those types of things. Or even a snowflake under a microscope is a fractal. Well, all of these things are based on this global scaling wave, which is the ultimate fractal. Now, the way that the protons then clump together in order to become even more stable determines the size of all our elements in the world. Most people understand an element: hydrogen, oxygen, chlorine, fluorine, sodium, fluoride, sodium of chlorine, I make up salt. So basically how these protons clump together to create atoms, and therefore to create compounds like sodium chloride, which is salt, or H2O, hydrogen and oxygen, which is basically water. How they clump together determines the size of these molecules, but it's then do they clump together in bigger, larger molecules together in order to create things like planets. So each planet has a specific size. Each moon has a specific size. Our planet has a specific size. Our moon has a specific size based on this global scaling wave. Every single thing on the Earth has a specific size based on this wave, this ultimate fractal. And we're also looking at human beings as well. A human being, have you ever noticed there aren't 12-foot tall human beings? They just don't exist, and actually there aren't even smaller ones than that. I mean, there are very, very small people, but even small people and very tall people have a certain lifespan as well, because these protons don't resonate very well. They come out of stability if that occurs. So the key is that when we look at certain organs inside our body, they are vibrating with all these protons at a certain frequency. And that frequency is what causes a disease is when the organ, which is normally happily working together, it's working in symbiosis with you as a human being, in symbiosis with the outer environment. Everything is working well. Now, if you upset the outer environment by a shock or by eating foods that basically upset it, that are the wrong frequency. Let me just talk about genetically modified foods for a moment. Yeah, yuck, absolutely horrible stuff. But also, let's say, foods that have been laden with chemicals. What happens is it starts to upset the environment inside our body. And this, you know, we can live with an upset environment outside our body for quite some time. But you keep knocking at it and keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, and then basically the body will go out of kilter. and it reduces our vitality, and that's what's basically what's happening with certain foods. But the other thing that is going on as well with all of this, Fiona, is the fact that these shocks are causing diseases, and this is the environmental piece. And as I said earlier, that these shocks are causing certain organs to change their overall vibration, which then causes them to augment themselves, which then eventually ends up with a disease. Does that?
Yeah. Wow. I think all my gaskets are intact.
Well, I'm basically saying there is a mathematical formula behind this now. We know it's real, and we also know that we can use this information to assist people to heal, because that's the next piece. Because I thought, yeah, great to know all the science, great to know that there's all this link, great to know it's mathematical, and I love all of that, because I don't like all the woo-woo la-la stuff that just says, oh, just, you know, focus on the light and all this stuff. That's great, but why? Why does it work for some people and why doesn't it work for others? And I wanted to decipher all of that, Fiona, put it into some sort of piece.
I mean, you do love that. I mean, you can see you just love acquiring all this knowledge, all this understanding. And one of the quotes that I love, and I'm fairly sure it was it Arthur C. Clarke, would he say that, you know, magic is just science we don't yet understand?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
Isn't that fabulous? Because, I mean, what came into my mind when you were talking was, you know what, this is the meaning of life. Isn't it?
It is, really. I mean, this global scaling wave gives us this actual total meaning of life and an understanding of why we have disease, why we are like we are, and what basically happens. Yeah, absolutely incredible.
So you learned all this, and then you thought, okay, what can I do with this?
Yeah. That was the next piece. And that really is going into my next book, because Why Am I Sick covers a lot of that information. Not all of it, covers a lot of it, and talks about the fact that there are some interesting stages in a disease process and the genetic link between everything, and the epigenetic link, really, and also looks at some of the brain CT scanning as well. But I realized there was way, way more than that. I mean, the book was written actually quite a few years ago, and my new work was taking all that information and then saying, well, how do we actually go about and heal, which is the title for the new book, which is How Can I Heal? And in that new book, I'll explain more about this information. And then from there, what I worked out was that the enteric nervous system, the gut system, the heart system, the brain systems, all these nervous systems work in symbiosis with each other. But what's crazy, if one of these nervous systems gets overwhelmed or overloaded because of a stress, or because of another part of the disease process, then the other nervous systems start talking to it in order to give it time. Now, the acupuncturists would actually, you know, really totally and utterly get this. They say, yeah, whenever we're working with an organ, basically what happens is that we are taking the energy from the surrounding organs and pumping it into that organ that needs to be assisted. Now, the work that I basically did was, well, also the nervous systems do that. They always have done. And this is just blowing my mind and my students' minds and other people's minds. And this is all in the Advanced Clearing Energetics Level 2 course, which I've just put together, actually. It's been a long time coming, because I wanted to do something that was groundbreaking, and it's blown my mind. It really has. And my students' minds, their jaws are just dropping. They just go, what? That's just happened? And yes. Yeah, and the beauty of it, Fiona, is this: it's really, really simple. I know it sounds crazy.
I was going to say, Richard, because I can cling on when you're talking about these things.
Yeah.
But that's as far as I can go.
Yeah, absolutely. I
mean, you explain it beautifully. When I hear you talking, I understand. But I think Einstein said, if you can't explain something simply, you don't understand it well enough. And I know that if I went to try and explain this to somebody else, I'd struggle.
I appreciate that. I really do. It's taken me a while to get it in my head as well. But let me share with you. It really, really is simple. Let me give you the underlying process. This Udin moment occurs, lands in the heart, communication goes to the brain, goes down to the gut system. That vibration determines which organ then is chosen. And each organ has a purpose, an environmental reason for being there. And let's be very simple about it. Let's take skin, the outer layer of skin, right? The skin where we go up to someone that we love and hold them. For example, a mother with the baby. You know, a mother and a baby would hold skin to skin. Two lovers hold skin to skin. Or even two people that are affectionately connected, even with a general hug, with the clothes on, are going to hold at some level a connection with each other. Now, if that connection is at some level disrupted, taken away, separated, the connection is ripped away, the skin then changes its vibration in order to solve that problem, in order that we can go off and find either another loved one, or we go off and find some other way to basically reconnect with that individual. What then happens is the skin flakes, and this is quite amazing, and this was picked up by a scientist going back into the I think he died in 1990s, Aaron Antoninsky. And also then Hammer took his work and said it was his, but it wasn't. But essentially the skin starts to flake during the stressful time where we're trying to find that connected person. So it flakes, there's less skin, and the reason why that is the vibration changes, so it feels numb. That's a physical reaction to it, so we don't feel that loss of connection. And then as that also happens, the enteric nervous systems are working, the heart is pumping out information into the world to bring that person back or bring someone else back in to replace that disconnected person. Then the outcome is when we reconnect, if we reconnect, there's a party in the body, you know, everything changes. And and then what happens is the body says, well, I now no longer need to be like I've been. And I don't need to lose that skin. What I now need to do is rebuild that skin. And in rebuilding that skin, it makes the skin hot and sweaty and red and itchy. Now, guess what? That's called eczema. Eczema has this beautiful... So
what you're saying then is this lack of connection, this separation, perception of separation, has a vibration.
Totally. Yeah, it has a specific vibration, and it vibrates along with how we have evolved as organisms in the world. It's how we have evolved as people, as embryonically, because this also affects animals in the same way that it does human beings. And it's the embryonic way that we have evolved that's very, very important to understand. And there are special layers of all these things that determine what type of energetic shift is going to occur inside an organ. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes a lot of sense. And my mind is just going off and thinking, well, we've all seen those emotion charts, haven't we? Where, you know, the lower emotions down the scale, they have a lower vibration. You have, you know, sort of apathy and whatever at the bottom of the scale, and the higher vibrations are these, you know, joy, compassion, love. And it's, as you say, everything has its own vibration.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
But when I said before that we know this, that it's almost an abstract knowledge, what you're doing is making it real for us.
I'm bringing it back into what we always intuitively knew, adding the science so that we can say, hand on our hearts, it's real and it's not woo-woo la-la, and then updating it so that we can use it. So, for example, with this knowledge, you can take someone with chronic pain, say pain in a shoulder, and the shoulder had been there for years and years. They'd done all sorts of different things, been to see chiropractors, had steroid injections in there, had manipulative therapy, done all sorts of other types of therapy, including maybe some energetic therapy, EFT, or some mind, body, soul therapy, whatever it is, hasn't changed it. But if you really know about this vibration, and this is the advanced clearing energetic stuff, and you know what's going on and the reason behind it, and then you can ask the heart why it's there, the guts why it's there, the brain why it's there, and then go back and clear it out using some very, very simple techniques, then the pain disappears. Absolutely.
Well, this is the bit that I found so interesting. Now, I did make some notes earlier, Richard, so if you'll just excuse me while I look at my piece of paper, because, as I said before, what I found so fascinating is that you work backwards. That was your, okay, we've got this, now how do we get to that? Which,
yeah,
you're asking, the heart knows. The heart knows first.
Yeah.
So the heart sends information up to the brain and down to the guts.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing. You're going back to there and saying, okay, chaps, we've got this.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, what's going on? What's the trapped energy? Where is it? What's behind it? And then getting that trapped energy. And, you know, it gets a little bit more even exciting than that, because then we ask for the epigenetic link. And we go back and clear the epigenetics. And we also do something which is very, very unusual, because in creating advanced clearing energetics, I modeled miraculous healers. Those people that could literally go up to a person and then just go up and touch them and say, right, you're healed. And you know, some people would genuinely get healed by that. And I was going, that doesn't make sense. Where's the science in that? And you know what? I wanted to go off and do that, but I just couldn't give myself the sort of stage to go off and go, hey, you know, put a big cape on and say, you are healed in the name. That just didn't work for me. I wanted the science. So actually what I did was I modeled these people. That's an NLP term for going out and finding out exactly what they're doing. And I found out that there is a higher level energy. I think most people know about this. It's the highest self, or the spiritual self, or the higher consciousness, or if you're from a different religion, you might even call it something like Allah, or you might actually call it something like Shiva, or any type of energy that's vibrating at a higher level. It's around us, you know. There's love is a higher level energy. And if you bring that energy down at the right time, in the right place, in the right order, and it's really quick, you can do this, it's so fast. What happens is the pain disappears, the trapped energy is, for want of a better word, and I can't use the word heal because the medical profession are owning that word too, but essentially the higher self comes down and bathes the trapped energy in a different energy, in a higher frequency, and literally that old trapped energy disperses. It's phenomenal. And, you know, it's beautiful. It's absolutely stunningly beautiful to experience and also to do. And the practitioner's sitting there literally just going, do this, do that, do this, do that, follow this, do this. And you know what's crazy is the practitioner doesn't need to get involved in all the story, in all the background or anything else like that. They just follow a simple strategy, and hey presto, what happens is the energy goes pop out of the system, and the person goes, oh, what just happened? And
yes, it's brilliant. I mean, why I like this so much, Richard, I'm going back because all those years ago you said to me, do you have a thyroid issue? I said, no, I don't have a thyroid issue. Well, turns out I did, which I discovered afterwards. But even knowing that I have a thyroid issue, I didn't have the memory to go with it. It took me another couple of years to find it.
And yeah, and you did find it, yeah. and you cleared it?
Yeah, but it took me 2 years, Richard.
Oh, sorry. I didn't have advanced clearing energetics then.
If you'd have done this then.
I would have been a lot simpler and a lot easier. Yeah.
Yeah, but isn't that fabulous? Is that not absolutely fabulous. That all you need is the energy.
Yes,
and you can ask the heart and the brain and the guts what's going on.
Yeah, and you know what? The work that I'm doing, you don't need a brain CT scan. You actually just can.
I'm going to say you don't need a brain.
Well, a brain sort of helps, I guess, but yeah, you don't actually need the brain CT scan.
But it's again, that's so much easier. What you're doing is making this simple and available to everybody.
Well, my real thing, that what I wanted to do with this actually, Fiona, was to make it available for, and I liken it to this, is the mother next door, is the grandmother whose Johnny or Sally has got a problem, and they go, well, I've been to the doctor, and the doctor says, hey, you've got to have antibiotics, and that's basically what you've got to have, or you've got to have steroids, or you've got this horrible problem. And essentially the mother can get this, what's going on, or little Johnny or Sally has a pain or something else. And I'm not saying that medical diagnosis isn't good. I'm saying that at least they've got a port of call. They've got somewhere where they can go and say, okay, there's a pain there. Let's go and have a look at what the trapped energy is about, deal with it very, very quickly. And obviously if it doesn't clear quickly, then to go down and say there may be something else going on. But essentially most of these things that we go through, and I'm talking about most of them, not all of them, we don't need necessarily to go and get a big medical diagnosis all the time. Let me give you an example. I think a medical diagnosis is really important. Let me just say that. I'm not saying that you shouldn't ever go and see a doctor. I think they're very important. My son has had problems with his hearing. And you know what? I had problems with my hearing when I was younger. So what I did with my wife, both of us, actually we went along, went to our GP, and they referred us to a specialist. We went along to the specialist. Oliver actually at the time had a horrible cold. And I thought, something's going on here. And he had it continuously. So then basically the doctor had him assessed and then said, right, I'm going to give him some antibiotics. And I went, huh? And by the way, we're going to put tubes in his ears and take his adenoids out. We don't need to take his tonsils out. We don't think that's necessary. And I can book him in next week. Have a discussion. And I said, yes, thank you. And we left. And both Chris and I went, no, this isn't the way that we want to go. So we've been looking at all sorts of other things. Plus, I've been working with him on clearing out the underlying problem. And what we think it actually might be is an allergic response to wheat. And we've had a second opinion at the same time. Yeah, because wheat basically around the world has been completely and utterly messed around with, and it's horrible, horrible stuff, causes so many problems. So we think that there's a problem with that. I certainly have an allergic response to wheat. And I've cleared it out energetically. When I did, it left, and then it came back again. I went, something else is going on here. And it may be the energetic response to these wheats that we are looking at now. But what I'm saying is that the parents then have a choice, that they don't have to say, right, antibiotics are the first port of call. They can go in and look at the stuff. My son had a problem with his back quite recently, and it was a horrible, horrible pain. And I basically, within 10 minutes, we got rid of the pain. It's completely gone. And it was where he literally landed on his backside, and he was in a terrible situation. Gone within 10 minutes, we solved the underlying problem, and the pain went. I mean, that's
fabulous.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, there's no words for that, is there?
No, absolutely not. It could have ended up him going to see a chiropractor, or even having some other sort of stuff. It could have stayed around for a long, long time. But more importantly, what I also wanted was a practitioner being able to work with this material. And I've got practitioners around the world. They love this material, and I've got one of them called Jonathan Shaw. He's brilliant. He's in the UK, and I think you've interviewed him, and he did all the back pain stuff. And basically Jonathan uses ACE all the time. He just goes in and he's told me various stories whereby he's cleared the trapped energy of a person with a severely a tendon that was going to completely ruin this young boy's career later on in life. And he used ACE, and he told me about the time when, as he was manipulating this guy's tendon. He's a sports therapist, by the way, as well as an energetic practitioner. And the whole tendon released under his fingers. He said, oh, I didn't expect that. Yeah, absolutely. And he's had issues with people with severe back pain, literally releasing overnight. And there is loads and loads of theory behind all of why it does that as well. But severe pain, I've had severe pain in people's shoulders, as I said, release. And also depression as well, being released. Other diseases, yes, some people may say, well, what about cancers? We know why they're there. I haven't had a chance to use some of the new techniques on cancers yet, but some of my students have. They're getting amazing results as well. So, you know, we're going somewhere with this stuff, and the beauty of it is it's in its simplicity. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And that's what I love about it, because I'm always looking for the quickest, the easiest, the simplest route to where you want to be. And yeah, this is brilliant. Now, one of the things that I wanted to ask you, when we did interview Jonathan, it was a fab interview. Now, he was talking about this, and obviously this was all quite new. But he did do a little process with me.
Okay.
And we did talk a little bit about it. But is it something that you can do on absolutely anything? We said before that emotions have a frequency. Obviously, if you've got something going on in a shoulder or in the stomach or in the back, that is a frequency. Can you do it on anything?
You can do it on absolutely anything. In fact, ACE, I've found out quite recently, can be used to set up your future, to clear limiting beliefs, to clear emotions, and also you can do it with all sorts of different areas. And I'm sure people are going to take ACE to another level. I mean, I can probably do that as well. But that's the other thing. I wanted ACE to be free. Not free to everybody, but freeing it up. Instead of holding it and just saying, oh, you have to do this, this, and this, that it's available. And so subsequently, the different levels of ACE are trained on a weekend. There's ACE level 1, level 2, level 3. They're weekend courses. They're simple to do. They're easy, just like EFT is. You know, EFT, I love EFT. And ACE is, you can use EFT with ACE. You know, they all fit together beautifully. And yeah, and that's what I wanted. I wanted it to be something, as I said, that, you know, even my son goes off and does ACE with his friends as well. They do something and he just goes and he puts their hands on them and says, well, can you feel that? And they say, yeah. And right, so what's behind that, and the energy behind it, and he goes off and clears it. It's bizarre to see him do it. But at the same time, he's just about to turn 5. So that's even crazier, isn't it? So it's funny. He went up to my wife, Kristen, the other day, and she had a little bit of a problem. He just put his hands on and went, okay, right, trapped energy, go back, yeah, good, all right, is it gone yet, Mum? Yeah, it's gone. Now, how does that feel? She goes, well, that's odd. That's strange, because that feels better. So I thought, yeah, well, why not?
Absolutely brilliant. Okay, so you were just saying there are 3 levels, and they're weekend courses.
Yeah.
Where do you find out more about this? Where do you do them?
Well, the courses I've recorded online because my audience are worldwide, and they basically are available to download and watch online. And also ACE level 2 is just about to be recorded. ACE level 3 will take a little bit longer, but essentially they're just about to come online. But ACE level 1 is already up there. Is up online, and so you can learn it there. And my students as well are getting, my master students are starting to deliver ACE level 1 courses around the world, and we are putting up dates for ACE level 1 as these master trainers are going off and training this material. They will start training ACE level 1, ACE level 2, and ACE level 3. And then there are other levels as well, but I won't go into all of that. But essentially, ACE level 1 gives you the basic techniques, ACE level 2 talks about the organs, and ACE level 3 looks at psychological issues such as mania and depression and obsessive compulsive disorder and, you know, and all that sort of stuff, which is very cool. And the point is, it's put together on how the body creates a disease. And that's what's new. That's what's unique. That's what's different about this work from anything else that I've studied. There is this process that the body goes through. And what I've been able to do by, you'll understand this joke, by Fluke, is literally it's work out the strategy that creates a disease, and then from there to just work it back. And so the body can, well, essentially this, well, I call it transforming pain into learning. Yeah. You take the pain, we find out why the body is screaming out to you consciously, and then what you do is we transform that and we turn that into learning so that the pain disappears and the body heals itself. And instead of having to go and annoy the doctor repeatedly, you can actually go off and do something about it. I'm going to say this again. The doctors are absolutely brilliant. I've got no issue with any doctors whatsoever. They do an incredible job and they do an amazing job with diagnosis. And they, in certain diseases, are absolutely brilliant. In other things, there really aren't answers. And certainly, advanced clean energetics helps us to do that first shift, that first put of call, that shock that we've been through, that person who turns around and says, look, I'm sleeping with your best friend. You know, you've been with them for the last 20 years, or you've just suddenly gone to work and someone turns around to you and says, hey, you no longer have a job anymore, or something horrific happens and you know, such as 9/11. All these things have an effect on us as individuals, and we can go off and do something about it and clear that trapped energy out really, really fast, really, really quickly, and very, very simply. I mean, it takes minutes. That's the crazy thing.
I love this. I love the work that you've done. I love the fact that you have all this knowledge and comprehension, because it wasn't ever enough for you, was it? You had to keep going. You had to keep going. And Peter Fraser was exactly the same, wasn't he?
Absolutely.
That interest, that focus. Now, we're not all the same. I can't do that. That's not me. But when I hear about fabulous things like this, because my quest has been, how can you help people in the most gentle, efficient, quick way, without re-traumatizing, etc., etc. And this is perfect for that, isn't it? Absolutely perfect. The fact that you've got all this understanding, I don't need to know that. I mean, you have explained it to me in a way that I can understand. But I don't need to know. I don't need to know how a car engine works.
No.
But I know that if I put diesel in a petrol vehicle, it ain't going to work too well.
Absolutely, and I think the key behind all of this is the maths, the science, and everything is there. It all works. It has been working for millions, if not billions of years. That there's nothing unusual about all of this, and that's what I wanted to do, is to bring it full circle from something that I could see, as I said, miraculous healers doing, other people doing with great techniques, and turn it into something whereby we all can use. And you, like you said, you don't need to know how a combustion engine works in order to be able to get into your car, turn it on and drive down the road. You know it works. And the same thing with human beings.
It's one of the things that I remember from school, actually. It's suck, squeeze, bang, blow.
Yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, but I have no idea what that actually means. It's just abstract knowledge.
But the point is behind this, when you realize and you go off and work out exactly what's going on, and the science is there behind it, and that's what I like, science has finally caught up with what we've been talking about for years. Yes. Then what you can do with this information is just amazing. And the other thing that I found was the simplicity, as I said before. the simplicity of this information is absolutely incredible. How easy it is, because basically the body creates a disease for a damn good reason. I know that sounds crazy. And then if you can find out what that reason is and reverse it, yeah, you're done. You're sorted.
Isn't it lovely in a way, though, that, you know what, my body has not made a mistake. It's trying to tell me something. This is wonderful. Richard, we could go on all night.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we'd probably better not.
Okay.
So, what I want you to do, tell me, where do we go to learn more about this?
Okay, so the best place to do, there are a couple of things you can do is go and buy the book. It's coming out at the end of July. You can pre-order it already now, so you can get the copy delivered to your door before anybody else. You can go to Amazon.com or any Amazon place. It's called Why Am I Sick? Or look under my name if you can't find it. It's under Richard Flook. Please do not buy the old version. It'll cost you thousands of pounds, dollars, whatever. The actual new book is completely revised with Hay House. It's fantastic. I've been involved in all the editing. So buy the book, and also you can go off and find courses as well at advancedclearingenergetics.com. So advancedclearingenergetics.com, and I think that we'll probably there'll be a link underneath all of this to get a special price on all of that. So let's make that happen and let people go and learn at least level 1 at a very, very special price.
Well, I know I'm going to, but one thing, Richard, one thing I've got to say is my first edition is signed. When am I going to get the updated, revised, super duper?
When are you going to get it? Well, I'm sure we can organise something. And,
absolutely, I want it autographed.
Okay, all right.
Richard, as ever, fascinating. And may I personally say thank you to you for the work that you've done, for carrying on, and then for working out how to give it to us. Thank you.
Thank you.